Hello, and welcome to Stream of Conscience, brought to you by Democracy for America, Fairfield County. I'm your host, John Hartwell. Our guest today is Anna Duleep. She's a candidate for the Common Council here in Norwalk. She's running at large. In 2009, Anna served briefly on the council. She was appointed to fill the position of a councilman who had retired. And then she ran for election the first time in 2009, but she needed to finish fifth in order to be continuing on the council. She actually came in sixth. She lost by 21 votes in a recount. Last year, Anna also ran for the State House of Representatives against a longtime minority leader of the Republicans in the State House, Larry Cafaro. And she did well in that election. She got over 40% of the vote. She's back again running for Common Council in Norwalk. Welcome to Stream of Conscience.
Oh, thank you so much, John. It's a pleasure to be here.
What is it that you hope to do if you get on the Common Council?
Well, there are several initiatives that I've started in the community that all fall under the purview of the same committee on the Common Council. So my goal is to run for council to be the chair of the Health, Welfare, and Public Safety Committee. The first order of business would be to provide structure to our Youth Services Department. When I was on the Common Council in 2009, the position of Director of Youth Services was defunded. The person who holds the position, Linda Willock, accepted the retirement buyout, and as a provision, we voted to allow up to 1,000 hours of part-time work per year. I voted for that, intending that to be a short-term solution, a way of easing the transition between Linda and her successor. I sit on the Youth Services Advisory Board, and I have yet to hear from our current mayor what his plan is to fund that position, to find a candidate, and to hire somebody. Right now, our Director of Youth Services is technically retired, and we're very fortunate that she chooses to continue to work in Norwalk up to that 1,000-hour minimum. But this is a big city. We need somebody in there full-time.
So what does the Director of Youth Services do? Why is that a critical position?
That position, she is the person who administers multi-million-dollar grants, such as the grant we have for early childhood education, grants that we've gotten for addressing gang violence in the city. And also, it's just when we are in a position where our school budget is being cut and where we're talking about all of the different factors that affect student performance outside of the school walls, here is the person who is in a position to provide those services that these kids need outside of school time. And we have someone who's retired, and out of the goodness of her heart, because she loves Norwalk and cares about these kids, continues to come in and instead of going to the golf course and enjoying her retirement. And
how well do you think the department meets its requirements now? Are the services that they provide adequate, or do those need to be also beefed up?
Well, I'd encourage you to attend a meeting of the Greater Norwalk Area Local Implementation Service Team. These are teams that were founded around the state, and the premise was basically, look, we are the people who care about youth services in our communities. We know that there aren't going to be additional funds coming from Hartford. What can we do to band together to prevent children from falling through the cracks? Now, in Norwalk, we have a very dire situation that should have been anticipated and planned for, but wasn't by our current mayor. Our juvenile court caseload was moved to Bridgeport, or possibly Stamford. I would have to check that. DCF offices were moved out of Norwalk.
The DCF, Department of Children and Families.
Yes. So we're in a position now where if you need to see your juvenile probation officer, let's say, or you need to find out how to get food stamps, something along those lines, you've got to come up with bus fare. You've got to figure out a way to go to Bridgeport or Stamford for these services. And while it's comforting to hear from people at DCF that they have done this before, that Norwalk will have coverage. I'm very concerned when I hear from Sergeant Ashley Gonzalez, who is somebody who works with these children, that referrals are going down. It is difficult for our police officers to get a hold of somebody, and I'm not blaming DCF for this. What I'm saying is that this is something that we needed leadership and planning and forethought from the face of our city, and unfortunately Mayor Moshe didn't do it. Another move that was very curious to me is that in this year's budget, Mayor Moshe moved the line item for the Early Childhood Education Coordinator to the mayor's office. Now, the reason given for this is that the mayor cares so much about education. He wants this in his office. Now, it's great to have the mayor involved. I'd like to see him at more Youth Service Advisory Board meetings myself, but there's a reason we have a Youth Services Department. Rather than moving more of these positions into his office, what he should be doing is giving us a timetable for when we can expect to have a full-time director of youth services and properly funding that department so that we are making our investment where it matters, where we get the biggest bang for our buck, which is early childhood education.
So who makes the decision to hire the new director? I mean, what's the process?
It is entirely up to the mayor. So our current mayor, I don't know what the plan is. I am hoping that Andy Garfunkel becomes our next mayor in November because he shares my passion for education. He used to be in the PTO when his boys were at Wolf Pit. And he knows that a smart investment is putting the money into early childhood education rather than letting these children go through school ill-prepared and then trying to make up that difference and then wondering why our property values are going down because our test scores aren't good. Well, you invest early and then it pays off in the long run.
Now, you're a teacher yourself.
Yes, I'm a certified math teacher.
And you actually have a business that where you counsel kids for tests and also all the way up to adults.
Yes.
So you're in contact all the time with children here in Norwalk, and
yes.
you also meet the parents. So this is not secondhand knowledge. You actually have firsthand knowledge of the problems and the potential.
Yes, and actually, as part of my pro bono work with Duleep Educational Coaching, I work with Serving All Vessels Equally, which is a gang prevention program in South Norwalk. We're headquartered at Canaan Institutional Baptist Church. And, you know, I've got to tell you, one afternoon when I was helping out there, I helped a young gentleman write a letter to the principal of Briggs. Now, Briggs is our alternative high school here. He was writing a letter pleading his case to her, begging her to allow him into the day program. That's how much he wanted that opportunity to show her that he could change. And I felt very privileged to have the opportunity to help him to put his thoughts into written words and to give him some suggestions, having met with, she's now retired, the principal Elaine Lane, and also having worked with her on the School and Community Partnerships Advisory Committee at Norwalk Community College. I was trying to give him, you know, a bit of sort of the guidance, the same sort of guidance that I give to my private school students on, you know, how to get that top SAT score so that they can get into, you know, their Ivy League of their parents' choice. You know?
Right. That's what everybody wants.
Yes. Well, it's you and your wife know.
Right. So, in addition to the Department of Youth Services,
yes,
there's also a search going on, or should be going on, for a new police chief. Is that
yes.
right? Can you tell us more about that?
Well, I actually found out a lot more of the information on it from an article in The Hour titled GOP Angry over a proposal by our current town clerk and I hope future mayor of Norwalk, Andy Garfunkel. Now, Andy had suggested a nationwide search because our current chief, Harry Rilling, had his contract extended for 1 year. He's going to be retiring. And in most corporations, I believe, certainly in schools, you may post internally first, but you're going to post all of your opportunities online at the very minimum.
Sure.
And you're going to try to attract the best and brightest from anywhere. Bring them here to Norwalk. Now, apparently, Mayor Moshe was quoted in that article expressing anger that Mr. Garfunkel would even consider looking outside the department. And this is when I finally figured out, oh, that's why they extended Chief Rilling's contract for 1 year. Apparently the candidate Mayor Moshe has in mind, and this is nothing about him personally, perhaps he will be the best candidate, but apparently he needs another year to get the credentials necessary from training from the FBI to be able to assume that position.
To qualify for the job.
Yes.
So you're thinking at the moment that Mayor Moshe is looking at someone for the job who right now doesn't have the credentials necessary, and so therefore they're delaying the retirement of the current chief in order to give the new person time to qualify.
That was a reasonable inference based on what I read in the hour coverage, and thank goodness they covered it. Otherwise, I'm wondering how I didn't know that as someone who served on the council just 2 years ago. Now, here's the situation in Norwalk. The actual decision on hiring is up to the police commission, which I believe is 2 appointed members plus the mayor. So I wouldn't get a vote on this, even as chair of Health, Welfare, and Public Safety. However, I'm deeply disturbed by a difference in perception when it comes to violence in Norwalk, particularly gang violence and gun violence. There seems to be this perception that there is, it only happens in certain zip codes, and that, depending on when you talk to the mayor, such as when the Guardian Angels wanted to come to Norwalk, that was a big to-do a couple of years ago.
I remember that.
And he said, well, there is no violence. And I'm wondering, what mystical bubble surrounds Sono, such that there's no crime in Sono, but somehow all the crime is in South Norwalk. Last time I checked, Sono was a business district within South Norwalk.
Within South Norwalk, yeah. Well, this is really fascinating, and you've got a big campaign ahead.
Yes.
Voting is on November the 8th, I believe, this year.
Yes, it is.
So you've got almost 2 months still to go. And I'm sure you're spending a lot of time out talking with people and meeting them and working with various people in the community.
We are. We're getting terrific synergy. People are so excited that the Democrats have a really viable, energetic, and kind candidate, because that's the sort of person that we want to be the new face of Norwalk, Andy Garfunkel.
Okay. Well, Anna, thank you so much for coming in today, and we'll be following the campaign very closely.
Oh, thank you so much, John. It's a pleasure.
Our guest today is Amanda Brown. She's running as a Democrat for the Common Council in District C, which is in East Norwalk. Amanda served on the council from 2007 to 2009 when she was elected in 2007 for an at-large position. She ran for re-election in 2009 and lost, but she's back again. She wants to be back on the council and helping in Norwalk. Amanda is working right now in a legal office in a financial company over in Westport. She serves on a couple of nonprofit boards here in Norwalk. She was born and raised here. She's also a member of the NAACP, so she's quite involved in the community and has her finger on the pulse. Amanda, welcome to Stream of Conscience.
Thank you, John. It was a pleasure to be here.
So what would you like to do if you get back on the council? Before you were chair of the ordinance committee, what would you like to do this time?
This time I think I like to focus my attention in maybe 2 areas specifically. One would definitely be in the health, welfare, and public safety area, because our city is having a crime problem, and I think that I may not have the answers, but I know that there are solutions to the answers, to the problems rather, and that we can, if we work together, partner with the police department and the community, and whatever bridge that needs to come about, I believe I have some skills to help that conversation take place. And being in this particular committee would allow for open dialogue between both parties so that we can come to some mutual ground, so that we can protect our city and the reputation of our city, so people would love to live in our city, grow in our city, and be in our city.
So I understand that that you're looking for a new police chief, that the current one is going to retire.
That's correct.
And so there's a search going on. What kind of person would you like to see brought in as chief of police?
I would like to see a person who is not afraid of the minority community and who is not beholden to stay behind the blue shield, if you will. I need someone who is going to be able to be approachable and listen and tell the truth. Because at the end of the day, we all know that there is crime in our city. We all know that not every policeman is bad. No. We all know that every person who is arrested is not being arrested falsely, and we know that sometimes there's an excessive, force used to arrest people. So where is the common ground? Let's come to the table and say, okay, we all have reservations about one another, but we have a major problem. People are dying. That is a huge problem. I don't want to see any more young men in a coffin. Right. I don't want to see any children getting beat up at their school bus stop, because that happened in our city 2 times, for this one kid in a week. Really? Let's have this conversation. How do we take the violence from our kids? Because at the end of the day, as I've been speaking to some law enforcement officials, it's not the kids who are like 17, 18, 19 who are truly the problem, because they've already gotten their stripes, they've already done their deeds. So it's the younger kids who are being recruited. Let's find out what we need to do to get them in a position where that's not an option or that's no longer attractive. And I think that's the other side where I believe I would like to be on the Parks and Recs committee once again, because we need to engage our kids. I know we do a lot with our after-school programs when we have the funding, and I have a feeling that we're missing a lot of the kids who do need that extra attention. And because we have a beautiful beach and we have some gorgeous fields, I think we need to come up as a city with some plans to engage them. The ones who don't want to be in the, say, the Bears or the Senators Club, but just want to express themselves. We can do something for them.
Let's go back to the police for a moment.
Sure.
What do you think is the relationship right now between the police and the minority community in Norwalk?
It's full of tension, I believe. Yeah. I don't think they trust one another. Okay. And based on which side you're on, I could see pros and cons from both sides. So I think the person who is going to be best at the head job is going to be the bridge in between those two, right? They're going to get additional training for the police so they become more sensitive and aware to what the struggles are of the people in that community, because they're not all drug dealers. No. They're not all living in housing complexes because, they're lazy, or any of those stigmas that are associated with people who are of low income. They're trying to make it like everybody else, right. And they're in a predicament where, crime stems sometimes. So what do we do to stop that crime flow? And then on the other side, a police officer goes to work hoping to come back home to see his family. Of course. So with that whole idea of I have to protect my life from people, I would have my defense up too. But what do I have to do to make sure that your defense isn't up so bad that you're afraid of me, when I might need you, when potentially I could hurt you, but maybe not because I need you. So all of those different dynamics need to be addressed and literally honestly discussed, right, in a forum where no one is going to be mad at the end of the day when you've spoken your piece, right. But let the piece be spoken. Because, I know that, there's this thing about snitches, and then you don't tell the police, what you've seen or what's going on, because there's, a code on the street. And then, sometimes I've heard that police officers have openly expose people who've given them information, which now puts that person's life in danger. So those have to be corrected in order to foster a respectful relationship. Because at the end of the day, nobody who's living in a project or a housing complex wants to have murderers in their complex, or drug dealers, because their children are playing outside. Right. So how do we work it?
What organizations do you think can help bridge that gap between the police and the community?
I think an active, police commission could do something, because they sit truly at the gate of the bridge. They sit there. I think they should have open dialogue all the time. I know that there is an alliance committee that happens in the police station where the police officers have opened their doors to the South Norwalk community, and they come with their complaints when they have people who are sleeping on the streets, throwing out mattresses, and they are very receptive. But I don't think that the voices are being all heard, because I don't think they even trust the police enough to come and make their cares and concerns known. Wow. And I think that's where we are.
Now, one of the organizations that you work with on a nonprofit status helps people who are coming out of prison, is that right?
Correct.
And get resettled in the community.
Correct.
Can you talk about that a bit?
Sure. Cornerstone Community Development is a nonprofit organization that was fostered from the church that I attend, wherein they actually would go into the prison systems to do Bible studies and give worship services. And then they saw that there was more than just a need to pop in and see these gentlemen, but to help them reestablish their lives when they got back home. So we have this reentry house that we're trying to get up and running. So if anyone wants to contribute, we're always looking for assistance. But we want
to... They can contribute their time and their energy.
Absolutely.
We're not just talking about give us money.
No, because we need food for the house, we need clothing, we need linens, all kinds of things. And then we also need people to help them get their licenses. We also need people to teach them how to use an ATM, depending on how long they've been in the system, right? Because people who come back out, they're amazed by the technological advances that we've made, right? So we're trying to get people back up to speed, help them get their GEDs. They may need a tutor, help them financial plan, or work on trying to get a good job so they can be productive citizens and fathers to their children, not only in sight but also in financial assistance. So it's a full comprehensive working on the whole person to get the person ready to meet the challenges of the world and not do it the way they've done it before, but successfully.
So how could you, if you were on the council, work to make these things possible? What would your role be?
Well, first and foremost, I think it's the role of the mayor, whoever that is. Hopefully it will be Andy Garfunkel, because I believe it's time for a change, to have the heart and the initiative to push these type of things to the forefront, at first to be discussed, and then to decide what the problem is. Let's design a plan once we figure it out, and let's design sort of like a machine on how we're going to implement it. And once we get that machine, let's do it. I don't want to hear it, I want to do it. And I think that's one of the things. I want to be a doer now with the influences that we have on the council. So first things and foremost, if I was on the Parks and Recs committee, I would go and I would see the director and say, look, I know the constraints that you have with the parks, the scheduling and times. What can we do right now to get some of these kids who are on the streets playing something, doing something? I know it's going to cost us money. Then we go over to the finance department and say, where can we get some money? How do we do this? Knock on the door of the youth service director, and find out how she can help us get some grant money. Because at the end of the day, we have the ability to do it. It's whether or not we have the desire to pull it off. Because there's always money out there if we want to get a job done.
And so in Parks and Rec, you're saying we need to be doing more in terms of helping the kids, providing them with things to do. Absolutely.
Now, I live in East Norwalk, so I don't have, the convenience of a whole lot of kids around, but I have noticed consistently on Saturday nights that it's not just African American kids who are walking the streets. It's all kids walking the streets. They're looking for something to do. Recently there was a little sting out in Walmart down on Main Avenue, Route 7, where these kids are drag racing. These are 19, 20-year-olds. They're a little bit older, but that desire doesn't just start from nowhere. So if we did something, maybe got like a rec room and put some Wiis out. They could do Wii bowling. Do you know what I'm saying? Just giving them activities to do. That, all we need is some volunteers to make sure everybody's safe, somebody to donate some cupcakes and juice, and we have something for our kids to do. Not just the dances with the loud music, but something even more, creative and, relaxed, so that they can be themselves, but under some supervision of caring folks who want to see them thrive, instead of struggle.
When you came through the school system in Norwalk,
yes.
How do you find it today as opposed to then? I mean, you a native of this system. You know it well. You know the people who go to school today. How is the school system?
So I have a little of additional insight. It might be a year old because my daughter just graduated from Brian McMahon in 2010.
Okay.
So when I started, they used to say Norwalk was whack. That was the term, because we didn't have any activities for young people to do. And unfortunately, we still don't.
Really?
Right? So not on the kind of like a community level, we don't. And I think that's unfortunate, because kids are looking to do something.
Right.
They're smarter, faster, brighter, instant gratification seekers. And as adults, we need to somehow meet these needs. And when I was younger, I was in the band. that kept me occupied. Now, not everybody's going to want to learn to play an instrument, walk in a funny uniform in the hot sun, and and toot a horn. So you have to figure out what.
What did you play?
I played the clarinet.
Did you?
I did. Yes, I did. So that's what I did. I played softball in the summer and basketball in the winter, just because I wanted to stay active and also wanted to go to college. And I know all of these things, made me a better candidate to get into a good school.
Sure, sure. But you're saying today there really hasn't been much more that's doing for the kids than there was when you were in school.
Unfortunately not. And we have had in this last budget cycle some serious cuts that have taken some of our kids' sports away.
What kind of cuts?
Financial, directly to the Board of Ed line, and I believe the swimming team at Norwalk High was in jeopardy. I don't remember if they made it or not, and I know that the Bears and the Senators, for the band teams, they will fundraise. They will do what they need to do to make sure that that program stays active and thriving, but without that, some of them are also in trouble. So I think that we need to be better in our decisions on making cuts when it comes to these type of things, because we don't want to force our kids out of the already established programs, right? We want to encourage more activity that's structured and safe and keeping everybody, on a positive level. So I think that would be a great deal of what I would like to do if I were on the Finance Committee, which would be the third one.
Well, what would you like to see done with taxes in Norwalk if you were elected? How do those come in front of the Common Council?
Yes and no, kind of, right? So we have the Board of Estimate and Taxation, who actually manages kind of like the purse of the city of Norwalk, and currently Fred Helms is doing that. And I can say he does an admirable job. I have to give him credit where credit is due, even though he's a Republican. But I would say that it would behoove them to not only look at the purse and say, well, we can't afford this, and not look at the investment that them actually investing in our children and education would actually pay off later. So I would say that would be my suggestion to them. Look out for the best frugal way to handle the money, but don't forget the cost that it will cost the city in the long run if you do not invest in education, if you don't invest in paving our roads, things that make a city somewhere people want to live, and I think that's what matters to me most, is to make sure that the city of Norwalk gives children who I don't have now, I have older kids, the same beauty, opportunity, riding your bike, safety in the streets, that I had as a child. And if I can't stand up for that, then I shouldn't, never say anything, because that means I'm not worth the salt that the city of Norwalk put in me, over these last 20 years now, since I graduated from high school.
Right.
Yes.
Well, we'll be following your campaign with great interest.
Thank you very much.
Do you have much competition in District C?
I do, actually. Nick Kides is, I'm going to technically be going against him, and he's been a formidable foe but a kind foe on occasion for many years. And a newcomer, I think her name is Michelle, and I have a running mate, Tabor Hamilton, and hopefully the two of us will knock the two of them out, because the top two of the four of us will get in. So we look forward to a wonderful challenge. We have a debate coming up shortly, and we hope that everything will be amicable and well worth our time.
Great. Well, thank you very much for coming in today. And as I said, we'll be watching this closely.
Thank you very much, Sean.
Okay. That's our show for this week. We hope you enjoyed it. If you live in the town served by Cablevision from Norwalk, you can catch our show every Wednesday on Channel 88. If you're interested in learning more about progressive political action in Fairfield County, please check out our Democracy for America group. We meet the first Wednesday of the month, 7 to 9 p.m. at the Silver Star Diner in Norwalk. We always welcome new members. Remember, change is possible, and you can make it happen. This has been Stream of Conscience, and I'm your host, John Hartwell. We hope to see you again soon.